Kyle Bradge from Chaparral Motorsports here with Michael Lindsay, and today we're standing in front of the 2020 Honda CRF450R. Right now we're going to talk about the differences between this 450 and last year's model, so you can make a decision on whether you want to get old stock or a brand new bike. Also behind us, you're going to see all the other 2020 models here, and these are the bikes that Michael has just finished his 450 Shootout on. So if you're curious about how all these bikes handled one to the other, take a look at Michael's channel to get that information. Now, digging into the guts of this guy, what's different year over year?
There's actually quite a few differences for the 19 to a 20, but just to kind of give people a background of what I think is interesting what Honda is doing is, man, this bike was kind of this generation started in 2017, and it was definitely a home run for Honda in the sense that they finally built a bike that had more of a wider characteristic that guys liked. The two generations prior to that, the 09 to the 12 and then the 13 to the 16, they had some real positives, but they had some negatives, and I heard a lot of Honda guys go, man, I just want a bike like my 06 to 08, something that was very rounded, had a lot of rounded characters between motor and chassis. Like I said, I think they really nailed that in 17, so since then they've been pushing good upgrades on it each year to kind of maximize off that resurgence of the Honda 450 being a powerhouse. In 17, especially when we talk about powerhouse, is the engine. The Hondas have always been known for a very conservative motor. Well, in 17, I think they kind of got sick of that a little bit, came in with some really big upgrades on the engine side, and then 19, they just gave us the full shebang. It went to the top of the class on dyno charts, and not only on the dyno chart, but the aggression on the track. It's a very stout engine at all RPMs. It has a very harsh response even at times. Sometimes it's exciting, sometimes you're like, man, this might be a little too much, and that's kind of what they got themselves into last year. So big goal for the 20 was to try to clean that up between the base maps they have. They actually have a different ECU map for every single gear. So every gear you shift into has its own dedicated map, which is a little more unusual for a dirt bike. And then they added a system called their torque control, which comes, compared to some of the one-stage systems there on some of the other dirt bikes, they're RPM-based. Honda made a big push, like, hey, we brought this a lot from the street world. It's a lot more sensitive, and it has a lot more parameters. And the biggest thing I noticed with it is you have your 3 ECU maps, which you're always active. You're on 1, 2, or 3 of that. The torque control can be totally off, or you can be on torque control 1, 2, or 3, and they're each different versions of it. And honestly, I don't like that type of restriction system usually on a 450. I want all the power to be there at all times, and I want to be consistent. The Honda one, though, it's a lot more consistent how it acts. So I actually really like the bike in standard map 1 ECU with torque control 1 on, and I had a lot of guys in my Shootout that normally don't run any of these systems that actually liked it on setting 1 or 2 because it was consistent. The Honda, like I said, it's a very aggressive power. It comes really strong off the bottom, but it's kind of torquey. It has a good RPM build, and then in the mid-range, it almost takes off faster. You feel that change of rate and power build, and I was struggling personally with where that would come on jump faces, and it would kind of get away from me. The torque control cleared out that spot a little bit. It restricted how quick that RPM build change was, and that's really what this system does, is control RPM build rate. So Mapple is very consistent when it comes on and how much RPM change it's making. 2 is a bigger degree, 3 is a huge amount. Some guys that really want to mellow this out might like it. But what I liked about this system is the consistency in which it came on, and it really did manipulate the power in the way I wanted it to kind of take what the Honda had, all this output, but just make it a little more consistent through the range and a little more easier for me to understand what it was going to do and why. Really from there, the other big changes are for 19, they did an all-new, not all new, but the back half of the chassis completely changed, got a lot more rigid. The bike got more precise because of that, but to me it also lost a little bit of its operation window, is a term I like to use. So what I mean by that is it's precise in the fact that when it's set up right, it has high peak performance. The bike turns in great, it has great turn response, great corner traction, exit middle, everything's good, but I feel like when you change terrains or you're working on a track that's just starting to degrade, that window's narrow, the bike doesn't conform to the track as easy. So while the new update to the chassis is better in straight performance, it wasn't as easy as set up. So they really went out with the suspension settings to try to maintain the balance of the bike a bit more and try to maintain that. It is better. It is overall a little bit slow in its character. One of the biggest changes I did is sped up the rebound on both ends while we were riding it because it was very planted feeling, but it was partially because it's kind of packed down in the stroke. And then they've also worked really hard once again on that suspension to balance it out. Yeah, the suspension, I would joke before that last year the bike teetered a little bit. It would basically go from forward, from shock movement to fork movement, and it would never stay balanced. It was always kind of moving around, which makes the bike feel a bit heavy because you're getting into the corner and the bike never wants to settle down, quit moving. And when it's always changing forward to rear motions, it just puts more physical power against the rider. They have to kind of fight that more. They balance this bike out more, so it's less draining on the rider in that sense to maintain. The performance of the chassis is so high, it's not the easiest bike to set up track to track, and that's where it struggled a little bit in this year's Shootout. Riders loved it when the track is smooth in the morning. As it got rough, they just felt like they were chasing the settings a little more, and when they would get it really dialed in at one track, it'd be great, but then we'd move to a different track and they would still be kind of searching. So I think the bike's really good for guys that ride the same couple tracks over and over. They can get a good base setting going. If you're changing where you ride all the time, like the materials are changing a ton, it can be a little bit of a challenge. So you definitely have to keep your thinking cap on to maintain that performance of this bike. But then just talking from the 19 to the 20, it's a tough pull. I do like a torque control. What it did to the power characteristic was great for me in all situations. It really made the bike more rideable, and it's something I highly recommend. So if there isn't too big of a price difference at what you're looking at retail-wise, I would pop for the 20 in this case. A lot of the stuff out of the box is better, but either way, both bikes do have the huge power output, the 19 to the 20, and they do have the big peak performance on the chassis. Just what you're going to get with the 20 is a package that's a little bit more manageable from track to track and situation to situation.
That sounds great, Michael. Thanks for giving us the detailed breakdown between the 19 and the 20 Honda CRF450R.
If you like this video today, please give it a thumbs up. If you want more action like this coming directly to your inbox, please hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you can be part of the notification squad.
Thank you guys for watching. We really appreciate it. I'm Kyle. This is Michael. Until next time, take care and ride safe out there.